What's going on there, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the other day there was a stream put together by Code Phoenix over on Twitch, and they just went ahead and interviewed Garrett, who is a level designer over at 1047 Games, who obviously works on Splitgate 2. And the interview was actually very interesting. There was a ton of really cool information that was discussed. So, of course, I jotted down all the most important factors that I wanted to relay back to you guys. And I just wanted to have a sit-down discussion and hear what you all have to go ahead and say. But, of course, ladies and gentlemen, before we go and dive deep, if you guys are interested in more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell. We post here daily at 8 morning Eastern Time. And, of course, if you guys are interested in any of my live streams, I stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting between 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, if you guys are interested, I got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, before we go and dive deep, I do want to mention I will have the links to both Code Phoenix and Garrett's Twitter down in the description of this video, so you guys can go ahead and see with your own eyes all of the stuff that was discussed if you do want to go ahead and sit through the whole overall podcast. And I also want to state, I love 1047, man. I gotta be honest. I don't know many development teams who go out of their way to actually hold conversation with us common folk here. You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys could be doing interviews with all the paid streamers they have. They could be talking to Shroud and Tim the Tatman, but instead, they are always interacting with the core community. You know, you don't gotta be some massive, over-the-top influencer to be able to have contact with these developers and see that they actually care about the game and they care about us. And these type of interviews and these interactions just further prove that point. And I really do appreciate all the hard work and effort that they put into trying to, form a solid relationship between developers and also community. But with that being said, let's get into the topics here. First and foremost, I wanted to go ahead and mention that they are apparently planning on reworking some of the maps that are already currently in the game. So there's not really any timeline for when this is going to occur, but some point in the future, we will more than likely see some of the maps that are already introduced into this game, with maybe some few tweaks and changes here and there to make sure the balance is overall better. Honestly, I think that this is not too bad. I think the maps are already perfect as they are. I'm just going to say it right here, right now. I don't know about you guys. Although I do see, other criticisms here and there. But I love all the maps. I think they're tons of fun. But I'm sure a lot of the people in the community could probably nitpick a few things, like I said, here and there. So if the developers can perfect them and make them better, then by all means go in and do so. And Garrett also went ahead and, described how they go about designing these maps. And I think, we already understand this, but, just to go ahead and, kind of bring this topic back to life so others who might be new into Splitgate 2 can understand. Splitgate 1 was always more so hyper-focused on, insane Portal gameplay. With Splitgate 2, the whole concept was to go ahead and simplify it to make sure that casuals can go ahead and enjoy the overall experience. So, again, they tried to fine-tune the maps to make them less chaotic, although they're still chaotic. Let's be honest here. If you verse a lot of good players who are good at Splitgate 2, you will see that they are indeed chaotic and you can fly around the maps. But they toned it back, from what Splitgate 1 was. And of course, this does cause a lot of controversy within the community. But personally, I still think that this is the best thing that could have been done. A lot of friends that I stated before didn't play Splitgate 1 whatsoever because it was too intimidating, actually genuinely enjoy Splitgate 2 because of this exact reason. So, although I know, like I said, it's controversial, I think that the developers are doing a very good job at making sure that, it's balanced out for all parties that are involved, casuals and also the sweats. And Garrett also came back a little bit later in the podcast answering another question revolving around this topic, acknowledging that the team does understand there's a lot of people out there that, will die on the hill, that there needs to be double or even triple the amount of portal surfaces on all of the base maps in this game for the overall map selection to be considered good. You know what I'm saying? But again, Garrett, along with the team, is making it very clear that if they were to go ahead and do such a thing, it would not benefit the player count whatsoever. Again, it is very productive to keep casuals into the experience when literally every moment on the map is a flank, constantly having to, watch behind you, watch every single angle. It's a lot more set in stone with how it is now, and you can expect certain situations and scenarios to arise as you work your way through the map. And as I stated before, you can also fly through the map still, but it's a lot more, predictable on how enemies can kind of place themselves, and it feels more so like a chess match compared to just absolute complete randomness and never knowing what situation is going to occur. So I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon. And Garrett did say that that is one of the main reasons why Splitgate 1 had a pretty rough time maintaining a lot of the casuals and, keeping a solid player count. And with that being said, let me kind of, progress into the next topic, talking about player counts here within Splitgate 1. Garrett also acknowledged the player count with Splitgate 2, saying it's not exactly where they want it to be. And again, this is exactly why I love this development team. They don't shy away from anything, even the current situation that they are in. I forget exactly what the question was, but there was a question asked about a roadmap, whether it was a base roadmap for the overall game or if it was a roadmap for what to expect out of the lab and, map features, so on and so forth. I forget exactly what it was. But the response from Garrett is that they basically aren't exactly where they want to be right now with the game, and they did not see the success that they initially wanted to see, hence, why they ran into the layoffs. So currently right now they're trying to, put assets in different locations and reprioritize. And when they finally get to a more comfortable spot where they themselves know exactly where they want to push, then they'll go ahead and share with the rest of the community. And also, a little bit later in the podcast, sorry, I'm jumping around all over the place, but since these things are kind of combined together, I'm just going to skip forward with this one. He later came back and discussed that the player count isn't exactly, where they wanted to be. Obviously not bad, but not what they anticipated. And they're trying to figure out exactly what it is, whether it's maps, content, so on and so forth. Personally, if you want my opinion, I think it's progression. It's as simple as that. The game runs very smooth, obviously some more optimization here and there, but overall a very smooth experience. Gunplay phenomenal, looks outstanding. Honestly, a decent amount of content around the board, so many things to play between Takedown, 4v4, you can go into 8v8 Onslaught. There's so many things available to each and every person. Same thing with the lab, custom games. There's so much stuff, so the content's there. I just think there's not enough progression and things to work towards for, personal reasons, whether it's camos or levels, so on and so forth. I think that goes a long way in the current day of gaming. Back then, it wasn't that serious, right? Let's be honest. We used to play games like World at War where there wasn't even a camo grind. You just kind of hopped onto the game because you really enjoyed the game. Current day, it's different. People need stuff to work towards. And I personally think that that would help out tremendously. But again, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this topic down in the comment section below. Overall, though, I really love that the developers are so open. They seriously are. I really appreciate that. The honesty and, showing that they can acknowledge these topics that are, always so rampant on every social media platform 24/7, which everybody else would usually ignore. But they never ignore anything. They really don't. They're just always open 24/7 with this community. And I think that's awesome. But let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here regarding some more stuff with the maps. Let's talk about some remakes here. As you guys already know, they went ahead and remade Stadium within Splitgate 2. And I think a lot of people are curious if they're going to go ahead and remake more of the Splitgate 1, catalog. And apparently behind the scenes, they're just kind of, sitting on it and seeing what the community has to say. If it's a lot of very positive feedback to Stadium within Splitgate 2, then more than likely they'll go ahead and continuously remaster more maps from Splitgate 1. And of course, if there's negative feedback and not too many people care and they want more fresh content, they'll probably go ahead and ignore a lot of the stuff that's within Splitgate 1 and trying to transfer it over to Splitgate 2. But overall, that seems to be their mentality when it comes to a lot of the stuff, remakes, specialists, for example, different factions. A lot of the stuff comes down to if the community likes it and if they want more. Again, one of the biggest reasons why I just really like the concept of this game, and I'm excited to see the future of it as well. Next up here, I know I already discussed this before, but yes, we are going to be seeing more reskins coming into the game like we had with the graffiti event in Ozone. We're going to see more of that stuff, and apparently all those maps are in customs. I didn't know that, but apparently maybe I can still load up, graffiti Ozone in customs. I'm gonna have to check that out to see if it's true or not. But if so, that would be phenomenal. If every single event that came out where we had a remake, if we could just save them in customs so we could still witness them, like I said, that's 2 thumbs up to me personally, because now that they took it out, I'm down bad. I'm being so serious. Graffiti Ozone was top tier, and I hope it makes a return in the public playlist. Also, Garrett went ahead and discussed that they had a decent amount of dynamic maps prepped for Splitgate 2 that never sadly saw launch, which I'm kind of sad about because I think dynamic maps are some of the best maps and would fit Splitgate 2 in the best ways possible. I really hope that they go ahead and enhance on this in the future. Apparently, in Core, I believe, there's a little drop-down window by the power weapon, but that's pretty much it. So whenever the power weapon comes up, the drop window drops, and you can, go ahead and snipe someone across really quickly, so on and so forth. But like I said, that's all. I hope in the future we see more dynamic creativity and also maybe some like weather and stuff like that. Could you imagine like Glacier actually having snow coming down? Or maybe we can have some rain on some maps, so on and so forth. I think that right there as well would be absolutely outstanding. That would look really dope in a game like Splitgate 2. And ladies and gentlemen, I do want to touch upon the Onslaught maps as well, because you guys know on this channel, I love Onslaught. And usually on stream, since we host open lobbies and you can have up to 8 people in your squad, we play a lot of that game mode. But I thought this a long time ago, and I stated to a lot of my viewers in my stream that, the Onslaught maps feel like they're more so made for BR and not really for 8v8v8. And it's not the end of the world because they still are extremely fun. Like I said, it's one of my most played modes. You can even look at the stat tracker. I'm pretty high up on Onslaught because I play it a lot. It's really enjoyable. But you could tell just by the portal placements alone, it almost feels like it's supposed to be not so spammy. And when you're playing Arena in Splitgate 2, that's that's the whole idea. Finding how to portal around the map very quickly, going from portal to portal to portal to portal, You could do it on all of the 4v4 maps. But when it comes to 8v8v8, you can't really do so. You can hit a few portals here and there, but a lot of the times you got to travel a little bit in between. But Garrett went ahead and confirmed that indeed the 8v8v8 maps were directly made for BR mostly, and then of course split off into Onslaught. Garrett also went ahead and said something that made me extremely happy, and that's the fact that we will more than likely indeed be seeing Sanctum come into 8v8v8 Onslaught. Thank the heavens. Again, Onslaught needs a lot more content. It's a great game mode. It's just the content, I hope they don't just let it dwindle away. I really hope they don't. I hope it gets some type of support. And again, I hope that maps will continuously be pumped out that will fit for both BR and Onslaught. And maybe one of these days we'll see a map for Onslaught that's more so made for that game mode and not specifically for BR, where they will add a lot more portal placements so you can kind of fly around it, almost like a 4v4 style map, but instead for a bigger team, combat. I think that would be tons of fun. And I do want to add this as well because I thought it was pretty cool. Garrett is basically the lead person when it comes to the map Inferno, for anybody that knows that map on 8v8v8 Onslaught. And apparently, there was supposed to be a whole underground section to that map, which would have been insane. Apparently, a lot of maps had a lot of different things going on. But, of course, a lot of them got very refined before the launch of Splitgate 2. I'm assuming maybe for performance, or they couldn't optimize it correctly by the time they had to hit their launch window. I don't know what it is, but I hope at some point in time they did say they're going to revisit some of the other maps in 4v4. Maybe some of the Onslaught maps could also be revisited sometime down the road, and you can add these huge chunks to them, because let's be real, a lot of other games do that, and I think that Splitgate 2 could do the same thing as well. Why not put together a whole event that's around expanding the underground of Inferno? That would be so badass. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to leave you guys with one last thing that was kind of discussed by Garrett. And again, this isn't the whole podcast. I'll leave the link to that channel down in the description of this video. And again, you guys can go and, hear the whole thing for yourselves. But they do acknowledge that although they do want to hold back on the craziness in the maps that they are creating to make sure casuals can still have fun, they still do acknowledge that they shouldn't be so reserved. And who knows, we haven't seen any of the future content yet. They might be expanding upon that a little bit more in the future, and maybe we will see some maps that go pretty far out there that will add that, not the complete Splitgate 1 experience, but again, as I stated, a lot of people are saying Splitgate 2 maps are a little bit more toned back, you know what I'm saying? And who knows what the future holds. But the devs do notice this, and they do say that it might be some potential, for expanding upon that in the future. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys off with all that information. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning on in. Of course, as always, if you enjoyed, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget subscribing at that bell. I post here daily at 8 in the morning Eastern time. And if you guys are interested in my live streams, I stream Monday through Saturday over on Twitch, starting between 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, if you guys are interested, go link that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.